if you move in the direction of where you want to go with your life, I think that is progress, even if it's not perfect.
Hi, and welcome to the Happy Progress Podcast. I'm Alex Harris, and today we're here with Dennis Vanderheiden. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm good. Thank you, Alex.
To get started, does progress equal happiness to you?
It feels like it. I hardly finish everything, and I feel happy when things are moving forward. It's one of the ways I feel happy. It's not happiness itself, but um, since I don't believe in some sort of end goal to get somewhere, I think happiness is by just doing every day a little bit. So I guess, yeah.
Very interesting. So give us a little bit of a background about convert.com. You started it in 2009. We've been mutually talking for many years. I actually interviewed you in 2014, many years ago. And I'd love to hear, the progress that you made and how you've gotten to this point. You now have a profitable, fully remote SaaS company doing really well. Take us a little bit through that journey and kind of how you got here.
Let's do a quick 2011 to 2014. If you want to hear the 2040 story, I'm sure you're going to link to it. 2009, I got the idea to kind of survive, because 2008 was a disaster for most of us in the world. I had a small child there, a daughter, my now oldest daughter, and I was running a lead gen company, and everything kind of traffic dropped. I needed to multiply the conversion rate on the existing traffic. I was able to do that with a WordPress plugin that my now co-founder made. And it was actually a rule-based personalization plugin. And we ran that across 200 sites looking for keywords that could come, that Google gave us at that time, search queries on the site, and we made personalized kind of inbound, like on-site ads for ourselves. So that worked really well. 2011, we were working on a split up of that idea, and it became a Reach. We got funding from a VC. We got a seed funding round of 400,000. I was in Mexico at that time, so there was a Mexican-US VC organization. And in 2014, you probably caught me in terrible times during a divorce, running a hierarchy of people that I didn't always treat as well as I do now in the organization. So there was a hectic time. We were already bootstrapped. We must have been profitable, because since 2012, we actually didn't take any more money, and we blew it all kind of that first 18 months, our funding round. And so by that time, I was probably in podcasts like you're saying, I'm profitable, but that basically meant a very low salary for me to be able to kind of survive off. So there was a rough patch at that time. Later on, not too long from that, I stumbled upon an idea called Holacracy, which basically meant a non-hierarchical structure for the organization. And we're now slightly over 36 people that convert, and we're running without managers and without me exactly knowing what everybody's doing right now. So
You have
things
3,000
change.
Sorry? You said 3,000 employees?
No, 36.
3,000. Okay.
So slightly over 30, under 40. And that varies a little bit, because yesterday somebody decided to go to grad school, for example, and so that moves a little bit, and we're constantly hiring. So around 35, 36, depending on the day we talk. And I don't do the hiring, I don't do the terminations. It all kind of runs just basically on setting particular goals and priorities for the team, and everything kind of tickles down. And I just follow the reports from the dozens of roles that we have in Convert.
Yeah.
And now it's a real profitable role, as in the company is profitable. It makes a couple of million every month, every year. Every month, that will be really nice. One of the future goals. So we're there in that sense. Now the salary for the founders and the team members is actually good compared to where it was 2014. And I'm now kind of like in the middle of like sort of a lifestyle business, I must say. We don't think we're going to IPO, or I don't see anything kind of like major happening on the road. It is
Hmm.
just a comfortable growth that's growing
Hmm.
like 30-40% annually. And actually this year, thanks to COVID, I think we're going to go more in the 50-60%. And there's been some industry changes, as you're probably familiar with,
Hmm.
that also contributed to that. So it's comfortable, it's nice. I work around 4 hours in the afternoon in the space where I am right now.
Hmm.
And the rest of the day, I'm on my cell phone with my kids and trying to do other things that I care about.
Well, it's great to see how you've really changed and evolved, really focusing on building a better team,
Mhm.
understanding what is the most important ways to kind of get success. Obviously, you want to make more money and be, get better reach, but it also sounds, following you, that you have a real character and caring for the people that you work with, and really just growing that. I think it's really just a mindset shift on how you think differently. Um, Before we jump into specifically some team questions, I'd love to hear, like, when you first got started, I heard you originally called your software the IKEA of A/B testing, and how you wanted to really bring it to the masses to get out there. Did you want to be like an Optimizely or an Adobe? Is that what your ultimate goal was?
Ouch. Yeah, it is in a way. When I started, I didn't even know what was called what we had, just to be clear. I just made this. I felt like, this is super helpful. It helped me. And later on, I actually found out that what I built was a personalization tool. Actually, my co-founder built it. So he completely built it. I just draw it on paper, took a picture of it, and kind of sent it to Romania. That's how that very initial product started. And the only thing I could find was a company that was called Omniture at that time that was basically doing that. And that was like 100,000. I'm like, wow, that's 100,000 a year. That's like insane. And I always thought kind of disruption would come from the bottom. That automatically meant a low price. So I started at $29. And I think the most expensive plan was $69, what we had in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And Optimizely didn't even exist, to be honest. I didn't even know VVO, for example, our now competitor, that started almost at the same time as us. They were building, like us, kind of a very ugly monster. It was called Wingify at that time. It did kind of everything that we also had. We had analytics, funnels, we had heat mapping, we had lots of stuff in there. A little monster that can do kind of everything as long as you knew how to program with DOM elements and DOM selectors and too technical. But eventually we found that a visual editor was the way to go. And then basically, boom, Optimizely came to the left. Omniture was sold on the right for 1.3 billion, I think, or something like that at that time. It was like, oh, wow, this is getting really big. And who are those Optimizely guys? And wait, they did a presidential campaign. I'm like, oh, their marketing is really spectacular. It's like, I had no idea about all those things, and they really became big. So definitely, there were definitely times, especially in the early years, looking at the 2013, 14, and 15, I do think, I actually know I was a little jealous of that road. I was like, another million raised, another 20 million raised, another 50 million raised. And that was like, oh yeah, that was kind of cool. I I found out that just because life threw me some curveballs, I needed to reevaluate what my priorities were. I was basically saying, you know what, if I want that, I can, but it means such a sacrifice of life and time. And I was just going through divorce. I'm like, I really don't think I'm interested in that, which is quite disappointing, of course, for investors to hear, because that's not what they hoped for. And I wasn't really hoping for that either. But I had a moment of reevaluation of my priorities and was like, you know what? I really want to see my kids grow up. And that means I might want to spend 3 hours in the morning bringing them to school and actually going on play dates with them and things like that. So that really changed in that sense. So yeah, envy, jealousy definitely was part of what I experienced. And well, I know I went over 40, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? The only thing I really have to go and improve is really me and myself. I don't really have to look at every other possible example of success. I just have to define it for myself. And you settle in that new reality. And as soon as I kind of found out what I wanted, it was, can I make a really nice company in the hours that I define want to work, in a way that treats people really nice, pay them well? Can I experience that trust that I give my children of finding out what their road is actually to team members as well? Like not telling them what to do like I used to. Like I treat my children significantly better, a 2-year-old, than I did do my team members at that time. I basically made checklists and tasks, and if they didn't do that, and if they didn't work fast enough, I would just terminate them as if it was nothing. I was like, this is not where I think I can go. I didn't know where I would end up, but I knew that 4-hour work week book with outsourcing everything, taking the gains and paying as little as possible overseas, it wasn't really fitting. Although the 4 hours a day kind of does stick with me.
Yeah. Well, uh, competition is good for the space in general. I've used all the tools, so I think they all kind of fit different customers in different businesses in different ways. So I'm technology agnostic, so I use them all. I'm definitely a big fan of convert.com as well. Let's go back to your team. So tell me a little bit about this new thing you're doing, the entrepreneur's journey.
Yeah, sorry. People wondering what on earth I'm doing each time I'm pouring myself a cup of coffee from my mini French espresso. So I don't know if you have this on video, but if you ever launch a video, this is why you don't see me watch Alex all the time. Entrepreneur's journey. Yeah, over the last couple of weeks, we've been pretty all over the place. At Convert, of course, we have COVID. We had a dip in March and April. We had a small loss, which is like a 6% loss on monthly recurring revenue. We're like, oh, wow, that's actually never happened to us. It's always up and to the right. Like the SaaS company, normally you're like, every month is the best month because you're just stacking on top of things if things are going well. And so we looked at that, and as soon as we kind of saw that e-commerce and everything was growing faster than everything else, yeah, we grew faster. So we now doubled our rates compared to last year on monthly growth. And somehow something happened. And that's important, I think, to know kind of as an entrepreneur's journey. I'm in a mastermind group, and for the last 7 years, I've been with the same people every 2 weeks. And everybody started retiring more or less very soon. And I was like, wait, I'm actually getting a really good salary, but I haven't built assets and things like that. It's like maybe if people are wondering, is it a good idea to build a VC funded SaaS company? It's like, yeah, sure. The only thing that you have to incorporate is like, at the very end, there's a payout, possibly. Chances are slight. And for the rest, you're just probably a below average salary worker compared to anything else you can get. So I definitely don't want people to have the idea that this is a smart way of gaining assets or money in the world. You're better off as a solo entrepreneur or a small agency, because then you can really put that cash to work in your own life. And as a SaaS founder with investors, you have to put the cash back into the company for growth. That's kind of expected. So I had a little frustration earlier this year where I saw, of course, all my friends kind of like, oh yeah, 2 years from now, I'm going to retire. 3 years, like, man, you've been on such a journey. That's not happening to me. So I got like all excited, like, how is that not happening to me? Is that freaking Holacracy model that I picked and things like that? Like, so I was a little bit something changed over the last couple of months where we start introducing performance to people. Like everything was very relaxed and we're all very happy family, kind of what do you see in the TV series in the 70s, all the Brady Bunch, kind of like, oh, fun, and it's all great. But it is a company in that sense. So we started to introduce performance, and we actually let 4 people go a month ago. So that was like a tough moment. And it took me 10 days of almost disconnecting from my company to come to that conclusion that was necessary. Because my goals also weren't always aligned with Convert. I do want to have a nice company, but at the same time, I'm a little frustrated that as a founder of an 11-year-old SaaS company, I still have a really hard time getting a mortgage, right? That doesn't always sound like fair in my sense. Like, look at that multi-million-dollar company, and I still struggle to get even my basic mortgage sorted out. So I put some fire under the team in that sense. So we let some people go, and we put targets and things like that. And part of that, we get a lot of feedback on how of a mess we made in doing that. Like, we hardly fire people. I think we fired 2 people in the last 7 years. So that's not an experience that I have. So there's a lot of potential for failing there. And yeah, there's definitely some lessons in how we did that. Definitely not always very elegant. And so I was like, how can I, after all my team gave their feedback about how I did that, how we as company did that, I kind of had to pick myself up a little bit. It's like, okay, what do I stand for now? It's like, yes, some of those values have been challenged, that I'm good to people and stuff like that. I have to kind of think about what I want for my team, the team that remains. I want them to be ready for the world in that sense. I want them to understand that it is a mindset shift to be an entrepreneur versus an employee, that the world, job safety, and of course lots of people have friends that lost their jobs, is not different in a startup as a large company or as an entrepreneur. I actually believe that the future is more entrepreneurs and less jobs, and so job security is, and I think, creating diversity for yourself. So I really believe that my team should start side gigs. And the best way that I know how to train them is, I've been a startup mentor for other startups. I did mentoring and accelerator programs. I did some startup weekends, and I believe the lean model is something that people can kind of learn, and you just have to practice in failing and just picking yourself up again and going at it next day. And so I decided that the best thing that I could do, after kind of going a little bit through a turmoil at Convert over the last couple of months, to saying, you know what, I want to prepare my team for that world. I think I can find the entrepreneurs inside Convert that build new products and features if I give them the right shit. So there's a direct benefit. At the same time, we can take your side projects inside the entrepreneur journey presentations that I do, and we go over a new product every week, and we try and see if that product is the one that we're going to take to a real product. And so there's forming a team, a mini startup in Convert, and I record the sessions and I share the presentations in Convert, and then everybody can kind of follow along. It's I don't know, I think it's really important that people understand why, as an entrepreneur, you take really quick decisions, because you know a lot of margins of different products, you know the scale of things, you know that it's equally hard to run a bakery and that you get $3,000 of salary, the hours that you have to put in, versus tackling a large multi-billion problem. You also work the same hours. So if we tackle bigger problems, it's probably a better pay, even if you fail spectacularly. Convert is, compared to what we thought it would be, a spectacular failure. We aimed for billions. I promised billions on that first slide of the VC, and we made it to millions. So it's a spectacular failure, still a very good business, right?
Right.
So doing that with bakery, you're aiming for $5,000 of salary and you get 500, like a 10x what you expected, and you have to close the bakery.
Hmm.
I still have a company with 36 people right now.
Right.
Even if I failed spectacularly, I invested the same amount of time as anybody on the other side of the podcast probably wants to invest in any other business. You're gonna have sleepless nights. You're gonna sacrifice a lot of things. It better be worth it on the other end to solve a problem that you care about and
Right.
that the income matches the hours in the end.
Yeah, and as you created this successful company and you've made more money for your business and yourself, probably realizing that money necessarily isn't always the answer. And how can you also empower your team to take on more creative challenges, think outside the box? It's, yeah, I kind of think of that as that Google model where you spend 20% of your time working on free projects to really improve your problem solving, gain new ideas, and bring it back to your business where you may be able to apply that to actually convert.com and so forth. I think
Mhm.
it's the growth abundant mindset, really thinking outside the box. And you're a big picture guy. You're thinking about things way before that they're going to happen. And it seems like you've learned a lot from the mistakes or the failures that you may have had. What advice would you give to other people who are thinking about creating a SaaS company, or maybe they're in a job and they're looking to leave or make the leap or have a side project? What type of mentorship or advice would you give to them to know that that's okay?
Depends on, most of the problems are people's minds, right? So the limiting beliefs that you put on yourself, that's it constantly. And
What
so
type of
you,
limiting beliefs have you seen from
I
different
know,
team
I don't just
members?
know the mine. Let's
Right.
share mine limiting
Sure.
beliefs. Because I can relate to, and maybe some other people can relate to them as well. I found it extremely hard to pay myself. Like, it's been a constant struggle from the beginning to the very end. It's something about self-worth, right? Are you worth that amount? And the amount looks so big from the outside of me, the 16-year-old tomato picker that got like $3 an hour kind of person. Inside myself, I'm still that person, right? So like, there's just the body changed and like I grew new things, but a lot of the belief system doesn't change all that fast. So I was like, I am not worth that 3,000 or 4,000, and moving my salary up was extremely difficult for me,
Mhm.
which is, do you deserve that? And then I had things like, I need to pay everybody else because I'm responsible for it. At one moment in time, I stopped doing that. There's probably not like, I think 2015, 2016, I was saying, everybody's salary is gonna be shipped between the first, second, and third. I always pay myself the 27th of the previous month. That was such a mindset shift. It's like, I am the founder. I built this to facilitate my life, not to keep you all busy. Like, I did this for me. And that, like, that journey of I think this is more a advice to a founder that's already having some traction, but paying myself for it. You hear it all the time on those audiobooks. I'm sure you're listening to them. And if you're a member of Blinkist or Audible, you get this advice all the time. But actually doing it is really a different thing. Paying myself first, and then upping your salary. It's like, each time I had like, oh, I cannot really do this in life because I don't have the salary. And that's funny because it's just actually telling my accountant to pay me more. But I was like, no, I need to find more people to support more customers or more growth. And I was like, but I can actually just, it's an email. It's like, add the $1,000 to the end of the month. And that's really it. But writing the email, I would have to go to my mastermind group and say, yes, I promise in 3 months I will do it. And they'll be like, dude, what is this about? You're struggling financially and you can't pay yourself more, and you have the money in the bank in the company. that's not healthy. So I think those things that's a limiting belief. I found it limiting. I now have a salary that it's challenging enough. You have to save for things. Like that's actually, I think, super healthy. I can't buy a house a year or something like that. So that's kind of like not the case. I would still have to think about. But I really don't check my bank account about how much coffees or how much I go to dinner and things like that. That doesn't happen anymore. And at that point, I'm like, this is it. This is the perfect salary forever. Like, this is it. I have to think about what I do on a large scale, but on the small side, if my kids want something, or yes, we can take a hotel this weekend, yes, I can. That's where I think it's perfect for me. Like there's no golden watches. I buy secondhand clothes. I'm super minimalist and stoic in that sense, but I also don't have to look at the bank account anymore, like every month, to kind of like make the math work. So for me, that was a real problem. It took, I mean, I would say 8 years to get over something that I can tell you in 4 minutes. I've been to therapy for this. Literally, I recommend every founder and tells everybody, I think, just go to therapy. It helps with these kind of problems. If you're a limiting belief person and you start a SaaS company, I definitely recommend a SaaS in general. Because it's a product that you sell and not your hours. I'm very much for that. Like I found it extremely hard to do agency kind of work. I have a problem with people saying when I have to be somewhere. Like it really makes me feel I'm not free in life. So if 8 of my hours are defined by other people, I don't feel very happy. Now it's easier. It sounds like I can just move things around way more flexible, and my life happiness really increased by keeping that flexibility in my hours.
Right.
So I think in the beginning you can do services. Then the next stage is productize the services, and then build a product. So I definitely think going from job to side gig where you spend hours to a product is really good, because you're getting paid to kind of talk to people. And as a SaaS founder that's looking for a product, you don't get paid to talk to people.
Right.
Like I still have to do hundreds of customer interviews to find what is the potential problem that you want to solve. And that's the benefit of the agency part. So if you can sell your hours and have multiple clients in whatever industry you're thinking of, I think it gives you a grasp of what these people feeling as pain points. And they're kind of paying you to kind of talk to them. And so the customer interviews that a SaaS company needs to do, you can get a kind of ahead of that. So it's a kind of a safe way to go into a product.
Right.
I definitely also want to recommend people to go and build a tribe of something. So it could be be an expert. Like I was completely surprised by Paras, which is the founder of VWO. That's one of those founders that started at the same time with me, and he really built an excellent knowledge of statistical background. He really knew the industry significantly better than I did in the very beginning, and that's where they grew significantly faster, I think, because he built a community around his thought leadership at that time. And kudos for Paris if you're listening. That's really something I definitely recommend. You can go the Optimizely way, large funding, big names, US president, and go fast and do the whole Silicon Valley way. If you want to do it more like a more organic way, I think VWO and also Convert did it like that. We're trying to build communities. You can do Facebook groups, Slack groups, just build around a thought leader topic. So write blogs, do guest posting, do podcasts and webinars and things like that, and build your community around where you think you're going to be living in the next 10 years, in whatever space you define. And that will allow you to learn. In the beginning, 4 years, it is definitely hard work for everybody. There's no there is no fast road to this. This is after work, writing a blog, researching it, writing a blog a week, which is so good. I think if we all know Pep Laya did that, right? It's like he basically wanted the best blog in the CRO space to be live, and that's how he built his institute. In that sense, it's like, be that. And we have Simo, which is a Google Tag Manager and Analytics. They all build a super niche expertise in something and become unbeatable at that area. And if you're like, oh, there's so many gurus in my space, I'll be like, yeah, but your space then for vets, or your space for Airbnb homes with 2 rooms, you can always niche it out and you become the expert. And the world is really flat in that sense. Sorry, I apologize, round worlders. In that space, it's like the world is really like, if you pick a niche, there's definitely in every niche almost 1 million people somewhere. Like, it doesn't matter how niche you make it. It's like dog owners that are loving of horror movies that live in cooler climates. There's still 1 million people that could be your customers in every niche that you pick. So pick something that you would love to stay in, that's challenging enough, that inspires you for the next 10 years, and then find a product. So don't get too connected to the product or a problem. You'll find it, what it is, whatever inspires you, and just start writing. Take people on the journey of like, and open up, be vulnerable. Vulnerable is the thing nowadays. I mean, with coronavirus, it's super, everybody has to work from home. Everybody has kids in the background. Everybody is fighting with people that believe either corona could exist or not exist, or you have to have a mask or not. And it's all good nowadays. You can actually talk about it. You can be vulnerable, saying, I don't know yet what I'm talking about, but I'm going to interview really smart people and they will take me on the journey to expertise. And in 10 years from now, you will be there. And then you have a particular product that does several million, and you have a lifestyle, just chipping away at it every evening after work for the first 4 years to kind of get traction. And eventually you'll be like, wow, there's $5,000 coming in every month. It's not exactly my salary, but I could make the jump. You talk to the people at home and you're like, let's go and make the jump. Let's go into this full time at one point in time. So I definitely say side gigs are definitely the thing to move into. I mean, everybody that's unemployed, go and do it. There's no other way in that sense, right? Start it. Everybody that has a job is looking how this went. You can be out of one really quickly. So definitely build something that brings in $2,000-$3,000, just in case things fall through. You can pick it up and make it 5-6 and still pay the mortgage.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say a lot of key things that I'm just going to summarize how I interpret it. It sounds that you've really been focusing on your own identity, how your limiting beliefs. Well, you're very selfless. Like, you really want to grow your company and you don't want to take all of the salary, but overall, you've been really focusing on your identity, and you mentioned PEP and BWO and how they've really focused and worked really hard to understand their niche really well and be really the best at it. And that's what you did too with your software, your company, and now your team. How do you get through some of these difficult things aside from going to a therapist? Are you practicing a meditation and mindfulness, and how do you approach that into your business and your life?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years now where I don't have 2 selves. I don't have a self for you on the podcast with a tie or something like that, or a self that goes home, which is really refreshing and super liberating. That's, I think, if I want to give something to the audience, it's definitely, if you have 2 hats on, and if you have 2 faces and have to be somebody different at work than you are at home, that's definitely something that's going to block you. And I think authenticity, and I think in this case, the world pandemic helped in ripping off that face off I am this person at home and this person at work in a very dramatic way, more than most people expected. And we're still here. We're still here. I make a video for a LinkedIn contact that just connected to me while my kids are getting outside of the car and bringing them to school. I did that 2 years ago. I'm still doing it because I think you're part of it. I care about you, but I'm also doing my kids right now. So thank you for connecting. I really appreciate this. I heard my team say this and this, and then I hang up and send a video. Merging that, I think, is really liberating. It's like, I don't know. I guess I have to thank Brene Brown on all her books on merging those two versions of myself. So what I do during the day is to help me is I do simple things, as in I just do things like gardening. I garden. I make my cup of coffee with a heating water coffee French press and stuff like that, and I do it intensely. Like I focus on it. I don't do any sit down and mind meditation thing unless I cannot sleep or actually give myself the gift of those 10 minutes. I do make a coffee and sit outside for 10 minutes in the morning while the kids are trying to get dressed and scream that the world is going to end. I try to watch the garden and so I do things like that to stay sane. As I said, I take therapy, but also simple things like doing the dishes, taking care of the body, going for walks, going to the gym. I give my gym 21 minutes a day, just to be strict with that, no second longer. It's a habit that I'm not super fan of yet. So I'm trying to incorporate that and stick with it. And listen to a lot of audiobooks. I'm a super fan of Blinkist. I'm sure you know about it. It's I pay about $80 a year to, I think, get around 6 books
It like summarizes the books. Yeah.
Summarizes the books for people, and I read a enormous variety of things. Like I love that. It's right now I'm listening to a book about animal morality. Like, do we have morals and culture and language? What do animals actually have? Are we very different? Of course, we're animals, but we pretend not to be. We're thinking that we're superior to everybody else. And so these things are very interesting for me. Like I read very broad. It's relaxing. It's entertaining. It's about politics, philosophy, biology, lots of business, of course, as well. But Blinkist allows you to kind of like get a vast number of sources properly quoted. It's way better than probably you watching the news, I think, for your brain and for your health. It doesn't matter what country you're currently in. I think that news is pretty unhealthy in general. So I like to define where I'd like to go in life and let the current hottest new topic that whatever happens in politics in the country that I live in, I try not to get myself all too distracted on what somebody said yesterday. That's apparently the president of this country or secretary there. It's like, I don't really care. I prefer to read a book what happened the whole year after it's finished instead of watching today's news.
Yeah, definitely.
So that allows me to kind of focus on the task at hand. The task at hand is improving myself, trying to have my personal values represented in the company. So I don't want to break those, as in I care a lot about my privacy. I care equal amount of privacy of the users that we have. We care about how we treat other people, what words do we use inside the company and outside the company. And it's trying to kind of build a better me, and then everybody in the Convert tries to do the same, and we're trying to build a friendly, authentic, nice company without too hard of a sales target. And we don't close it. We don't close. If you like the competitor, they're freaking awesome. Go there. It's fine. I'm not gonna like scream or shout at it. It just is what it is. There's lots of older good tools out there that care about other things than we, and that's fine. If that's your current focus and your current match, it's okay. And so we're pretty relaxed in Convert. We're still growing significantly above market rates, and we're like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. okay. It doesn't all have to be taken all that serious. We're
Yeah.
just a tiny dot on a massive planet in an even bigger universe. It doesn't really matter all that much if you hit your sales quota this month.
Well, if you want to find out about Dennis and his great software that he does for conversion optimization, personalization, and really making more money from your website, because that's what you'd use the software for, you can visit convert.com. And I believe you could sign up for a free trial there if you want to check it out. And you can reach out to Dennis on all of his social medias. He's also on LinkedIn, very public with a lot of his messages and what he has to put out there. To close out, what would be one final piece of advice for entrepreneurs to really create their own destiny?
I believe so strongly in progress, not perfection. I really believe that just by taking one step today in the direction of where you decided that you wanted to be heading is good enough. And the idea that you reach the perfect version of yourself, the perfect software, the perfect customer response, the perfect software, the perfect sales pitch, I think is paralyzing. So if you move in the direction of where you want to go with your life, I think that is progress, even if it's not perfect.
Perfect. Thanks for your time, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Thank you for making happy progress part of your day. How are you going to take advantage every day? Please let Alex know by visiting the website happyprogress.com. Together we will prove that progress equals happiness.